An all-American housewife is found shot dead in her kitchen.
When you smell death, you never forget that, ever. I've smelled it too often.
And investigators must face their worst nightmare.
My child had been shot twice in the head.
I saw my son Dan laying there in those pajamas.
There are always certain cases you'll never shake. This is one of them.
In the search for truth,
Sometimes things aren't what they appear to be.
Kenda is pushed to his ultimate breaking point.
You son of a bitch.
The rage is consuming me, and I lost it. I looked at dead people every day, thousands of them over my career. And you are surrounded in a sea of violence, and you start to realize that maybe I am drowning. There's one thing that never changes: murder. A life has been taken. Their stories are now my stories. I never know where a case is going to lead, but I'll never stop until it's solved. Somebody has to look out for the victim. If you kill, I will find you. August 30th, 1989. I'm a sergeant in homicide. I was in my office at 3 o'clock in the afternoon reviewing old murder cases.
It's Kenda.
Sergeant, you're needed in the conference room.
Okay.
So that she would never reveal it. So I go to the conference table. The room is pure white. Well, that's a little odd. The table, the chairs, the walls, everything in the room is white. And sitting around the table are the victims of my cases. They're in various states of decomposition. Their clothing is torn, there are insects crawling on them. There is a river of dead that flows past me every night. When I wake up from one of these dreams, I'm sick to my stomach and soaking wet.
Joe, are you okay?
I could tell when he was having a nightmare because he'd thrash around in the bed.
Was it that dream again? Do you want to talk about it?
No, I'm okay.
He would shut down. He would be quiet. He wouldn't say anything. He'd stare off in the distance.
As a child, I was not aware of Dad having nightmares, not at all. He was very strong for us.
It was bad enough that my mom had to deal with it, and I think he was just conscious about not wanting to burden his kids with that as well.
I wish you'd talk to me about your job. I hate seeing you so upset, and I don't even know what's going on.
I never told Kathy for a long time, years, I never told her. I thought it was just cruel. Why do that? Why make her suffer like I'm suffering?
Well, if you don't talk to me, you should talk to someone.
I'm gonna head to the station, get an early start.
It was maddening at times. He'd just keep on doing whatever he was going to do.
I had always treated my employment as a mission, that I was going to make a difference in the world, what it took or no matter what the cost. I had not given much thought to retirement, but there were parts of my brain that kept knocking at that door. And I'm thinking, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to do when you stop doing this and looking at dead people? And it was a fleeting thought.
This is Kenda.
I had no clue when that call came in that this would be a situation I would never, ever forget. And to this day, I still cannot forget.
The Shangri-La Trailer Park was one street over from the station where I worked for quite a few years. It's a really nice mobile home park. It's very well kept.
Thanks.
The officer standing on the porch of this trailer knows me. He looked at me, and next to his leg, he held 3 fingers. Now, he's telling me there are 3 dead people in this trailer. And I'm thinking, oh, great.
So what do we got?
This one's a real bad one.
Any witnesses?
The landlord. But he's really distraught right now.
Hey, Joe.
Dave?
Got here as soon as I could.
I had actually been on Colorado Springs Police Department for approximately 9 years.
Let's take a look inside.
I was off duty that day. I just happened to be on call.
Oh, man. That's bad.
So we walk into this trailer. It's hot. There are flies in the place attracted by the blood. There's a woman in the kitchen sitting on the floor, halter top pair of shorts, in her early 30s. When you smell death, you never forget that, ever. I've smelled it too often.
Looks like she's been here all night.
You become rather accomplished at determining time of death because you see so much of it. Based on the blood and the rigor mortis in the body, I would say 12 hours.
2 gunshot wounds to the head. Close range, small caliber.
I recall her being propped up against the refrigerator in a very awkward position, as if she had not expected that shot that came her way.
We have an ID on the body?
Yeah, we found her driver's license.
She is Cynthia Anderson, and she's 32 years old.
As detectives scan the crime scene for clues, they narrow in on a curious detail.
Is it just me or does it look barren here?
Yeah, just a Bible, some dirty dishes, and a purse. Did you find anything in there?
Just a wallet, no cash or valuables.
At first blush, Kenda wonders if the carnage in the trailer is a robbery gone awry.
You look at this trailer, the first instinct you have is there any evidence of forced entry?
Yeah, the door looks undisturbed.
Yes, sir. We checked all the windows. They're all secure.
The idea of this being a burglary by a stranger does not have any apparent facts to support that, initially at least.
Where are the other victims at?
I'm back here in the bedroom.
There is a Caucasian male, approximately 30 years old, laying on the floor. He's got a gunshot wound to the right temple. And there is a Jennings .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol on the floor.
Hammer's cocked. Looks like it's been fired.
The pistol is ready to fire again. So you have to be careful when you handle these things because you touch that trigger and somebody's going to get shot.
I thought you said there are 3 victims.
In the bed.
There is a 5-year-old boy clutching a stuffed animal. This kid has 2 entry-exit contact gunshot wounds to the side of his head. And because of the angle of the bed, he has bled out. He's wearing pajamas. My son had those pajamas when he was little. The very same ones.
Joe, you okay?
I saw my son Dan laying there in those pajamas with 2 holes in his head.
Joe. Joe.
I gotta go outside. Sorry.
When you start doing this for a living, you build armor around your heart. You have to protect yourself from the horrors that you see. But there are times when something will go through that armor like a stiletto. We're investigating the death of 3 people by violent means. We know who one of them is, Cynthia Anderson, and she's 32 years old, and an unknown male. And even worse, we have a child, very small. It's the worst nightmare scenario involving the violent death of a child, but it's something you have to get to the bottom of. I have to. It's my job.
Sadly, I have covered several of these cases, and they don't leave you, ever. Particularly when you have children, it's just too easy for your head to go, what if that were mine?
Hey, Kath, it's me.
When he was working, sometimes he would call and say, won't be home for dinner.
Honey, you don't sound so good.
There's a kid involved.
I knew the kids really got to him, the young adults even, and the children and the babies.
That was an unspoken moment between she and I. She never questioned me as to what happened. All she wanted to know was that I was still alive.
Don't wait up for me.
Okay. I love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Children were always my kryptonite. I mean, I just could not get past that. I could not. And I would do whatever it would take to punish the person responsible for that event.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had to check in with my wife.
Of course.
Did you find any IDs on those 2 bodies?
Moore tells me they've identified the male in the back bedroom as 32-year-old Scott Anderson, and he is the husband of Cynthia Anderson, who's dead in the kitchen. And their child, 5-year-old Scotty.
All of the gunshot wounds appear to be consistent with the 22 found in the bedroom.
Most likely scenario, Scott wiped out the whole family.
This has the initial appearance to me of being a murder-suicide. That's my opinion.
While the scene suggests that Scott Anderson killed his own wife and child before turning the gun on himself, it's still entirely possible that someone else is responsible.
We have one opportunity to really get it right and make sure that we're not jumping to conclusions.
We need to find out if anyone stopped in this trailer last night.
I'm on it.
The issue in any case involving multiple victims is, who is a potential enemy of these people? So I'm going to talk to the person who called it in, which is the owner of the trailer.
This is Mark Brown.
I'm Sergeant Kenda. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Okay.
Can you just walk me through what happened this morning?
Yeah, well, my wife, Jenny, came over to help them pack some boxes. Supposed to be moving out tomorrow.
When he got to the trailer, he got no answer at the door.
You talked to her, right?
She said she'd be home all morning.
Mr. Brown reports that he knocked several times, and when he didn't get a response,
Hey, Cynthia?
he tried the doorknob and it wasn't locked.
Typically in a landlord situation, you would not go in, but they were friends and they were helping her.
Cindy?
What the hell is that smell?
What?
First thing he sees is Cynthia Anderson shot to death on the kitchen floor.
Jenny, no, stop.
What?
She's dead. All right, she's dead.
What?
I've never seen anything like this.
And what happened next?
He said he went to a neighbor and found a phone and called the police, and then he sent his wife home because she was so overcome with grief.
Did you go inside the trailer?
No. I just opened the door. Please tell me that that little boy is okay.
I said, Mr. Brown, I'm very sorry to inform you that that little boy is certainly not okay. He was overcome by that. He liked that little kid. Who wouldn't?
That's okay. We can talk later.
With no other promising leads, the pressure is on for Kenda to find out who killed the entire Anderson family.
Fighting crime / bringing justice was an obsession for Joe. It really bugged him when he couldn't get the knot completely unraveled. I mean, there are still a couple of those cases, and they drive him nuts.
Kenda, you have a minute? This is Cheryl Wright, one of the neighbors. She thinks she may have overheard the shooting.
Yeah, I mean, it was late.
She indicated that sometime around 11 p.m. that evening, she recalls hearing gunshots.
Heard like 4 or 5 loud pops. Sounded like fireworks. Then I heard a car drive off.
Did you see who got in the car?
No, I didn't see the car. I just heard it.
Oh, thank you for your time.
Sure.
What do you think?
It's hard to say. At first, I thought Scott killed the whole family. Now it's starting to look like there's a third person involved.
According to what Cheryl Wright says, it's still possible that there could be someone else involved in this.
This throws another avenue into the equation. So it is extremely critical to make sure that we focus on what we know is factual.
We need to find out more about this family.
Have they had a confrontation in the recent past with perhaps a neighbor or a coworker or something like that?
I'll go check next to Ken, touch base with you later.
Great. I'll hang around here until the scene's wrapped up.
Later that evening, Detective David Moore checks in with Kenda on his findings.
I tracked down Scott and Cynthia's family. They're all over Wisconsin.
Really?
Now, we had a policy on the CSPD that if we had a death and if the next of kin was not within the jurisdiction, we would make an attempt to try to do this as well as possible. We would call the agency, police department, sheriff's department, whatever, nearest the residence where these people are in whatever state they're in, and have an officer make contact and give them a death notification in person, then provide them with my phone number and my name to call for details. The reason we do that is coroners will literally call you on the phone in some other state. Do you have a daughter named Cynthia? Yeah, well, she's dead. What are you going to do about that? Are we going to call a funeral home or what? It's absolutely as cold as you can imagine. I never thought that was appropriate, so I would do it that way. It's not any better in terms of the news they're receiving, but at least they're not doing it over the phone in an absolutely cold manner.
Also pulled a background check on Scott and Cynthia. Found something odd.
Moore also determines that they own a home together, Scott and Cynthia Anderson, and it's located on Manitoba Drive, about a 40-minute drive from the trailer park.
Strange, right? Maybe they were renovating.
I don't know. Let's look into this.
So now the question is obvious. Why do you need 2 households? We don't know. It's our business to find out. We're investigating the death of Cynthia Anderson, her husband Scott, and her 5-year-old son Scotty from multiple gunshot wounds. We need to know what's going on in this family, and how could that lead us to who might have done this.
I set up a meeting for us early tomorrow morning.
Good.
Detective Moore had set up an interview with John Howell, who is a business partner to Mr. Anderson, to see what he may know about this family.
Hopefully he knows if the Andersons had any bad blood with anyone lately.
Great work. I'm gonna head home, get a shower and some shut-eye. You should too.
I probably won't sleep, but you gotta try, right?
With heavy hearts, Kenda and Moore head home to their families. But the memories of the crime scene still haunt them.
It certainly affected me as a father. I remember going home that evening and actually waking my son up and holding on to him and just thank God that he was there and safe.
It was always difficult for me to go home when you're working at murder case and walk in the door and be all smiles.
We knew that Dad sometimes had rougher cases than normal, just by body language and by the level of stress.
Joe, is that you?
Hey.
Sometimes it was very hard for him to come home and shut it off.
Are you hungry? I saved you some chicken.
And I was thinking about that child in those pajamas.
Oh, I heard from Dan today. He's really liking his classes at college.
My son was 19 years old.
We have to pick out a weekend and go visit him. Joe.
I'm sorry, I'm not hungry.
I know you've had a tough day, but I need you to talk to me.
I think Kathy was upset on a number of occasions that I wouldn't let her in.
Sometimes I would be very sympathetic to it. Sometimes I would get very mad at it.
Maybe it's time to think about doing something different.
What?
Retiring, getting a new job, because this one's killing you.
Kathy became increasingly concerned that I would die as a result of this work, either at someone's hand or at a health problem that I would create by my never sleeping and eating bad food and all the things you do.
You know that's impossible. Just can't deal with this right now.
Me neither. I'm going to bed.
And in my heart of hearts, I knew that Kathy was potentially right.
The next morning, Kenda and Moore meet with Scott's business partner, John Howell, hoping for additional insight into the Anderson family.
Good morning, Mr. Howell.
Call me John.
John was an individual who owned a commercial window washing business.
I'm Sergeant Kenda, this is Detective Moore. Thank you for talking to us.
It's unbelievable. The whole family just gone. Who would do such a horrible thing?
Mr. Howell did say that there's no way Scott Anderson would have ever hurt his wife or his child. In his opinion, they're a loving, caring family, and they go to church on Sunday.
Scott and Cynthia had actually met one another in Wisconsin.
Cynthia was pretty far along with her pregnancy. The natural father left her, you know, in a bad way.
Scott Anderson not only stepped up to dating a pregnant woman, but went so far as to name the baby after himself. He raised that child from birth to age 5.
They got married and moved here about 3 years ago. That's when we met. Started working together.
We understand they have a house on Manitoba Drive. Do you have any idea why they were living in a trailer on the other side of town?
Scott wasn't living there, just Cynthia and the boy.
Really?
He said that 2 months prior to this event, that Scotty and Cynthia abruptly moved out of the house. So we asked Mr. Howell, why would they do that?
Was Scott seeing anyone else outside of the marriage?
No, no way. Scott and Cynthia were good Christians. And Scott said it was a bit of a squabble. Didn't say what.
But they were getting it settled, and Scott had told him he'd even prayed about it.
As a matter of fact, Scott had redecorated the home they had been living in, got new curtains, and was fully expecting Cynthia to move back.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
We're sorry for your loss.
My opinion of Mr. Howell is he knows little or nothing about these people's marriage or about their relationship. He's a business partner to this guy. He's not in his life. He doesn't know anything about his life.
Kenda and Moore head back to the station.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Sarge,
And it isn't long before another lead surfaces.
someone here to talk to you about the shooting. This is Vicki Taylor.
I'm Sergeant Kenda.
Well, apparently she lives in the trailer park. She's very distressed and wants to talk to the police about this event.
I didn't know Cynthia well, but I keep replaying this conversation we had over and over in my mind.
Vicki had a child that was similar age as little Scotty. So they talked.
What'd she say?
She said the weirdest thing. She said she was running for the summer.
She thought that was very distressing. You're running from what?
She didn't say why. All I know is she was working the graveyard shift at the 7-Eleven down the street.
She also says that their son, Scotty, would come over and play with her son often. And he tells Vicki that his mom and he are going to move so they can be closer to a man named Jimmy, who his mother, Cynthia, met at work.
So Vicki's mind is wondering, is she having an affair? And that brings us back to, was there a fourth player? Does this guy Jimmy have a big vehicle that drove out of there at a high rate of speed?
I wish I knew more. Cynthia kind of kept to herself.
That's okay. Thanks for coming in.
The first thought is Jimmy our suspect? Is this a love triangle that's gone bad? Who is he, and what does he have to do with this? So we go find this Jimmy, who turns out to be Jimmy Hart, who is at work.
Jimmy Hart?
Yeah? How can I help you?
Did you work with Cynthia Anderson?
Yeah.
So Jimmy confirmed Cynthia had been there at the convenience store about 2 months. Everybody adored her.
Everyone's still really upset about what happened.
I need to ask you.
And we go right for the throat. Were you romantically involved with Cynthia Anderson?
What? No. We were friends. We were just friends. She's been going through so much lately.
What do you mean?
He denies the romance, classifies himself as a shoulder to lean on, and he is well aware that she and her husband are at bitter odds with each other.
Really?
Yeah. She said she wanted a whole new life, and so I helped her find a new apartment. Even set her up with a new job, and she was supposed to start next week.
So from Jimmy's perspective, Cynthia Anderson is in flight from her husband, which matches up with what Vicki Taylor says. Cynthia says she's running. Running from what? Well, apparently running from Scott Anderson.
I need to know where you were Thursday night.
Actually, I think I worked a double. You want to see my time card?
That'd be great.
Turns out he was at work from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until the next day. So Jimmy has no opportunity to shoot anybody. Jimmy's not a killer. Jimmy is a friend who's trying to help Cynthia escape from a bad marriage.
But Kenda knows someone close to the Andersons that might be able to give him the insight he needs.
Now, we have never talked with Jenny Brown, the wife of the landlord. It's time to talk to Jenny to see what she can tell us.
Jenny was not in the emotional shape to be able to give a statement the night that the bodies were discovered. But she's got some information that's really gonna blow this open.
So how did you come to know the Andersons?
We met them through that awful church. Luckily, Mark and I escaped.
Excuse me?
She says it's a non-traditional church, and it's almost cultish.
Scott was so devoted. I swear to God, if they hadn't joined that church, they'd still be alive today.
Her opinion was that they all died because of this cult-like church. Well, that's something new now, isn't it? We've been investigating the shooting death of the Anderson family, Cynthia, her husband Scott, and their 5-year-old son Scotty. We've learned this might have occurred because of Scott's devotion to the church.
Why do you say that?
This church was very restrictive, and Scott took their teachings to the extreme. Cindy wasn't allowed to work or drive a car, and any extra money that they had went to that church.
Every man, according as he has purpose.
And the money that Scott was giving to this church was actually impacting his family and their ability to meet their needs.
He was just becoming more irrational every day. It was like it was all or nothing with Scott. It was crazy.
There was a lot of controlling factors involved in this church.
Cindy, what is this?
Just Scotty's lunch.
Cindy, what is wrong with you? This is not nourishment. This is not what God intends for our child.
He's gotta eat, he's starving.
He's not eating that.
He used the Bible as an excuse to treat his wife like a slave.
He had gotten in his mind that processed foods were evil. And because all their money went to that church, she couldn't even afford to buy groceries.
And Scott Anderson was so devoted to this way of thinking that he told Jenny he'd rather see his son go hungry than eat these evil food products. Oh, swell.
A couple of months ago, she showed up on my doorstep with Scotty. Scott had hit her so hard that he knocked out one of her teeth.
We don't know exactly how, but he also abused Scotty. And for Cynthia, that was that. She made arrangements to get out, go to the mobile home, because nobody was going to hurt her baby.
So they moved in, and things were looking up. But Scott figured out where she was working, and he followed her to the trailer.
Which is very common in the abusive male personality. Mr. Anderson makes it his business to find them.
That bastard had to have the last word.
In Jenny's mind, there's no doubt that Scott Anderson is responsible for the deaths. Given the physical evidence I saw at the scene and knowing this, I don't disagree with her.
We'll let ourselves out.
We're sorry for your loss.
I just thought of something. Remember that Bible back at the crime scene?
Yeah.
When we get back to the station, you want to have someone pull that from the evidence locker?
Found it.
Nobody's touched it since. It is.
So we open this up and start fanning through it. And in the middle of the Bible is a note. We take that out carefully.
He kept saying the same thing over. Why are you leaving me? This is not right. We need to make sure we get back together and make this work. It was a very disturbing note because there were threatening comments there.
Sick bastard.
While the evidence is overwhelming that Scott Anderson killed his entire family, Kenda and Moore need the coroner to make the final ruling.
So we stopped down to the morgue.
Hey, Doc. Hey. So what do you think?
The autopsies have been complete on all three people.
So Scott's wound to his right temple was a contact wound. I'm confident that it was self-inflicted. I think he turned the gun on his family and then turned it on himself. So I'm ruling this a double murder-suicide. But there's one more thing. She was pregnant. What? Yeah, it was early on. I'm not even sure that she knew herself.
It makes me sick to my stomach that Scott not only achieved his goal of killing his wife, killing her child, but killing their child also. I mean, that is pretty damn close to demonic.
Based on the evidence and witness statements, Kenda can surmise what happened to the Anderson family.
Scott!
My opinion is that he showed up at her house unannounced.
It's not a good time. You need to leave.
Not going anywhere until you listen to what I gotta say. You are my wife, and this isn't right. God is gonna punish you if you don't straighten up. Is that what you want?
I think he probably introduced that Bible into that house, pointing at it, pounding his fist on it.
Scott, it's over. Scotty and I are never, ever gonna move back in that house with you. I'm done. You need to get out.
Cindy, I talked to God today. He will save us all.
He's got a loaded gun in his pocket. He pulls out that gun.
He will save us all.
He then immediately walks down that bedroom hallway. His son is asleep in a bed. He puts that gun against his head. And shoots him twice. Bang, bang. And he steps back. And then the case was closed. We have a suspect who is deceased, Scott Anderson.
Nice work, Joe. Time to go home and get some rest.
What's so nice about it? The whole family's dead.
Joe, let's go home.
There are moments in my career when I was filled with venom. There is no justice in a murder-suicide. There is only the taking of human life for no true, definable reason.
There are always certain cases you'll never shake. This is one of them.
The point is, when you identify someone who is an emotionless animal who kills because he likes it, we need to do something about him. Period. The end. I was in a position to do something about that. I didn't want to kill anybody because if I did, I would be like them. And I'm not like them. I never killed anyone as a policeman. I never pulled a trigger on a gun in my entire career, except at the range.
In the subsequent weeks and months, the Anderson case haunts Kenda on a nightly basis.
I'm like frozen solid, staring at this kid with gunshot wounds to the head in my son's pajamas. And I can't close my eyes. And I can't leave the room. When I would wake up like that, and I'd be soaked with sweat, and I'd be shaking and sitting on the bed, I'd look at Kathy, and she's just peacefully sleeping away like an angel.
The nightmares continue to take their toll until one day a case comes in that pushes Kenda to his breaking point.
I came into work, and it was a terrible start to the day. We were overwhelmed.
I got a guy in room 4 ready to confess, but I gotta go on a call.
How about you? Nobody?
Okay, I'll do it. Give me the file.
One of the people under arrest was a 74-year-old man who'd been arrested for sexual assault on a child. The victim was 5 years old.
Damn. That's repulsive. Okay, go. I got this. All right, appreciate it. Thanks.
About time.
Lieutenant Kenda, I understand you want to make a statement?
Yes, sir.
I start talking to him, even though my skin is crawling at the time.
So how do you know this child?
My grandson, he's my daughter's youngest.
The rage is consuming me. I feel like I'm a volcano and I'm going to erupt.
I mean, I think we have a great relationship. Go to the park, do puzzles.
Why'd you do that to that little boy?
Came on to me.
And I lost it.
You son of a bitch.
In late August of 1996, I realized that my emotions were interfering with my ability to do my job. And I didn't realize how overwhelmed I was until I was talking to that old man about what he did to a 5-year-old boy.
You son of a bitch. I'd kill you myself.
I really think about all the ways I could kill this guy and how much fun it would be to watch him die.
Lieutenant. Joe, are you okay?
This guy is crazy.
You shut your mouth.
And I said, get him out of my sight. Right now. Now.
Get up.
Go.
I know what I needed to do. I had been on the police department for 23 years and 6 months to the day, which equates to 106 years of doing anything else. And I sat there and I was sick to the stomach and my heart was going 400 beats a minute. I felt I was losing control of me, that I was becoming someone I didn't care for. And I didn't want that to be my legacy, that I was turning into some sort of a monster, so it was time to stop that. I'd tortured my own family, and I'd tortured myself on behalf of the citizenry of Colorado Springs. So I typed a single sentence. As of September 1, 1996, I am retired from the Colorado Springs Police Department. And I signed it. And that was that. It felt like somebody lifted an aircraft carrier off my head. I didn't walk out of there. I floated because I was lighter than air. I had no retirement ceremony. I didn't want the stale coffee and the stale cake. It didn't interest me. I wasn't doing that anymore.
See you Monday.
I was there on Friday.
Here you go.
Thanks.
And I wasn't there on Monday.
I was thinking about where we could go on a vacation. Maybe rent a cabin for a weekend.
Sounds nice.
Once he handed in his badge, I was very grateful. All the times of him working long hours, I really had a lot of concerns. Now, I didn't have to worry about Joe getting shot and killed anymore.
So, what are you gonna do today?
I have no idea.
Over the years, he slowly began to decompress.
And finally one day, Kathy looked at me and said, "You're the guy I married again." I wasn't a policeman when we got married. I thought that was very nice. Many years passed. I'd been retired for quite a while.
Good morning, Mr. Joe.
Good morning. So I thought I'd drive a school bus. Everybody take their seats, please.
And we're like, okay, Dad is driving a school bus. Never thought that would occur.
I loved it. The first job I ever had in my life, where everyone was happy to see me. Everybody ready to go to school?
Yeah.
Well, let's go to school in that case, all right? But there was always those nagging memories that pulled at me. PTSD happens when it chooses to. The best way to describe it is having a nightmare while you're awake. It takes your breath away. And it'll last for 15 or 20 seconds. And it's absolutely startling. I had kept everything bottled up in me when I was working, but now it's 8, 9, 10 years later. So I got a letter in the mail that changed my life. It's a letter from some guy that says he's going to put me on television. I'm like, that's going to happen.
And I said, well, you need to call him.
I'm not calling him.
No, you need to call him.
And she said, you know, I think it would be good for you to talk about these things. Finally, to keep peace in the family, I said, okay, I'll call him. Turns out he's a television producer who is very accomplished.
Basically, it was my mother who nagged him into it. That's probably the shortest version there.
What do you remember about that first interview you gave for the show?
The first season, the first time I started talking about this, it was a flood. They couldn't shut me up. It was like the dam broke, and here comes everything right now. I began to feel better, a little better all the time.
Because of talking on the show, the nightmares got less, the PTSD got less. The show helped him.
I think his analogy of the camera being like a therapist for him is true. People are not typically willing to share things that are painful to them. He is.
There's been a lot of benefits, actually, to the show. People want to talk to him and want to thank him for things that he's done. And he's just representative of many, many hardworking detectives that are out there in this country doing the exact same things, who aren't on TV, but are going through the exact same types of challenges in their lives.
And that's been very healing for him.
It has been my honor to entertain you. And it's also been my honor, hopefully, to educate you to some degree about how the world works and how people act and behave. And hopefully that can continue in some way. I've had a long and varied career, and I was successful at what I did. Will my passion ever stop for justice or finding the truth or locating people responsible for horrible things? No. That would never stop until I take my last breath. I put my badge down. I did. I put it down. I can't put my desire down. It's part of me. If you could analyze my DNA, I think you'd find it there. Something I've always said, and I always meant. If you kill, I will find you.